Podbean, your message amplified.
Ready to share your message with the world? Start your podcast journey with Podbean.
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 Podbean. Podbean, the AI-powered all-in-one podcast platform.
Thousands of businesses and enterprises trust Podbean to launch their podcasts.
Launch your podcast on Podbean today.
My school uses Podbean.
My church, too.
I love it. I really do.
You are now listening to Mark's Unexplained World by Mark the Medium. Available on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime, Podbean, and most other podcast platforms. This episode is about the Nazi gold train. So it's over to you now, Mark, for this week's valuable collection.
The Nazi gold train is an urban legend about a train laden with gold and treasure that was hidden by the Nazis in southwest Poland in the city of Wałbrzych during the last days of World War II. This unauthenticated tale claims that the train full of valuables, which included various pieces of artwork, was said to be concealed in a sealed-up rail tunnel or mine shaft in the central Sudets by the retreating Nazis. And despite numerous searches since 1945, which include those by the Polish army during the Cold War, no evidence of either the train, its tracks, or the treasure has ever been found. Between 2015 and 2018, the gold train received renewed global media interest when two Polish men claimed to have discovered it using ground-penetrating radar. And because of this claim, a search culminated in a dig that involved the Polish military, state officials, and privately funded individuals. However, these excavations were halted when the detected anomaly was found to be part of the area's natural geology. For 70 years, people have scoured the southwestern Poland for a sign of an armoured train rumoured to have been lost beneath the mountains, with some stories claiming that a German miner watched a couple of soldiers wheel a train loaded with gold, jewels and other looted valuables into a tunnel leading into the mountains. Also claiming that the invaluable cargo never came out again. And since then, other treasure hunters have searched for it, with new claims of finding the legendary train popping up every few years. Other interests in the gold train led a group of enthusiasts to construct a full-size replica of the Nazi armoured locomotive, with the hope of it becoming a tourist attraction. Although there are some people who say the gold train is real, there are many historians who say that it has never been proven to have ever existed. Greetings, Unexplainers. Thank you for tuning in once again and listening to this locomotion episode of Mark's Unexplained World. My name is Mark Hughes. I'm a medium, a ufologist, a true crime buff, a man with a very dark and disturbed sense of humour who, whenever a girl asks him if he's seeing anyone, I always automatically assume that they're talking about a psychiatrist. But just to give you a better idea of who I am and what I do, every week, usually on a Tuesday night, occasionally on a Wednesday allowing for bank holidays and busy weekends, I do a podcast on the many wide and various subjects that fall under the Unexplained banner. These include ufology, hauntings, disasters, and all sorts of other paranormal phenomena, including true crime, unsolved crime, serial killers, the darker side of some past celebrities, and the occasional missing person that often goes unnoticed. So if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review or an opinion of this episode's subject that I can reply to, a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. Or if you are listening on any of the other many podcast platforms, again give us a like and a follow. And if you do get a few minutes, perhaps you might like to check out my social media groups and pages, including Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, which are filled daily with all things unexplained and crime. I'll put a link to some of my socials in the description. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the hidden treasure story surrounding the Nazi gold train. And in this week's necessary disclaimer, well, to be honest with you unexplainers, this story is pretty much PG, so sit back and enjoy the journey. However, as usual, you not only listen to this show on your own discretion, but all opinions and comments are strictly my own, and the facts of the case still remain. I also apologise if I pronounce anything incorrectly. My English, although it is my first and only language, is nothing compared to a sign I saw in the urologist's office the other day that said, "You're in good hands." But anyway, let's dig into our latest podcast. Did you see what I did there? Yeah? The city of Wałbrzych is located in the Lower Silesian Voivodeship in the southwestern Poland seat of Wałbrzych County, lying approximately 70 kilometres or 43 miles southwest of the Voivodeship capital, Wrocław, and about 30 kilometres or 19 miles from the Czech border. Wałbrzych itself has the status of municipality, with its administering borders encompassing an area of 85 kilometres squared, or 33 square miles, with approximately 110,000 inhabitants, making it the second largest city in the voivodeship and the 33rd largest in the county of Poland. Wałbrzych was once a major coal mining and industrial centre, with the city being pretty much left undamaged after World War II, and possesses rich historical architecture, among which are the Ziz Castle, which is the largest castle of Lower Silesia and the third largest in Poland. During World War II, the Instabstab Richlester Rosenberg, or as I will call it from now on for obvious reasons, the EER, was established to confiscate all priceless treasures of both historical and monetary value. The EER focus was mainly on Jewish and Masonic cultural treasures, which eventually encompassed over 21,000 objects from Jewish-owned collectors. However, this was later extended to anything that was of value in Jewish homes, businesses and shops, as these objects were now, by Nazi decree, classed as ownerless. And together with the Nazi expansion across Europe, it started to include any collectors that were found in any national museums, galleries, churches and any non-Jewish private collections. After the looting was completed, the goods, or treasures even, were then carted off to Germany in what was reported in as many as 1,418,000 railway carriages, together with 427,000 tons that was carried off by ship. However, most of the significant objects were designated either for Adolf Hitler's unrealised Führer Museum, or they were allocated to other figures such as Hermann Göring. But in the closing chapters of the Second World War in Europe, many of the looted objects were then transported by train to a variety of underground mines, tunnels and secluded castles, and Hermann Göring's collection from his county residence, otherwise known as Karin Hall in Berlin, was moved by train southward towards Berchtesgaden in Bavaria. honest with you, unexplainers. There does appear to be several stories regarding how the Nazi gold train came about, but that seems to be the most popular or detailed that I could find. Another theory has said that, again during the last few months of World War II, a Nazi armoured train, which was laden with gold and other treasures, was said to have left Breslau, which is now known as Wroclaw, arrived at the station Freiburg in Schlesien, but did not reach the next station in Schlesien, and instead the train is suspected to have entered an abandoned coal mine or tunnel system under the aforementioned Zees Castle, which was part of the unfinished top-secret Nazi construction project, which was known as Project Raise, in the Owl Mountains, with the train itself being said to be carrying more than 330 tons of gold, jewels, weapons and various other artistic masterpieces. But, according to historians, the gold train has never been proven to have ever existed. On an interesting side note here, Project Raise, with the word raise being German for giant, was the code name for a construction project by Nazi Germany between 1943 and 1945 and consisted of 7 underground structures at the aforementioned Zees Castle and the Owl Mountains in Lower Silesia, which back then was under Nazi Germany but is now, of course, known as Poland. By the end of World War II, none of the tunnels were finished, with them all being in different states of completion, and only 11% of them were reinforced by concrete. The purpose of Project Raise remains uncertain because of the lack of documentation, but some sources suggest that all these structures were part of the Führer headquarters, and according to others, it was a combination of headquarters and their arms industry. But its comparison to similar facilities indicates that only the castle was adapted as a headquarters or another official residence, so the tunnels in the Owl Mountains may have been planned as a network of underground factories. The construction work itself was done by forced labourers, prisoners of war and prisoners of concentration camps, of which many lost their lives, mostly and mainly because of disease and malnutrition. After this first short break, in part 2 we will look at the beginning of the search of the Nazi gold train and the surprising results from the ground-penetrating radar.
Dare to discover the unknown? Book your own paranormal investigation at HAPRA 2026. The Haunted Antiques and Paranormal Research Centre, HAPRA, is now taking 2026 bookings, and your next supernatural adventure is just a £50 deposit away. New for 2026, we have upgraded. Our location now features improved sound insulation on all our windows, making it easier than ever to hear what shouldn't be there. Bring your team. Bring your equipment, explore the unexplained, record the impossible. Limited slots available. Secure yours now. Book now, believe later. hauntedresearchcentre.com.
During the Polish People's Republic between the years of 1947 and 1989, the Polish Armed Forces carried out numerous searches for the gold train, but to no avail. However, come forward a few years to the late August in 2015, and news stories began to circulate about 2 unidentified men who had managed to obtain a deathbed confession about a buried gold train. The two men in question, who at the time wanted to remain anonymous, were both later identified as Piotr Koper from Poland and Andreas Richer from Germany, who were both co-owners of the mine exploration company called XYZSC. And by using lawyers as an intermediary, the two men, Koper and Richer, managed to open secret negotiations with the Polish government for a finder's fee of 10% of the value of the train and its cargo, in return for information leading to its location. And so once all the documentation had been signed, the two men then revealed the exact location. However, the mystery of the exact location didn't stay a mystery for very long, as both Koper and Richer would later claim the information regarding their discovery was soon leaked by the Polish government, which consequently resulted in a worldwide media frenzy. On the 28th of August in 2015, the Polish Deputy Cultural Minister Piotr Zukalski announced that ground-penetrating radar images taken by Piotr Koper and Andreas Richer confirmed with a 99% probability that a train of 100 metres in length had indeed been found. However, 2 days later, on the 31st of August, a Tomasz Smolarz, who was the governor of the Lower Sicilian Voivodeship, told reporters that, and I quote, "There is no more proof for this alleged discovery than for others' claims made over the years." He continued, and again I quote, "It is impossible to claim that such a find actually exists at the location indicated based on the documents that have been submitted." On an interesting side note here, ground-penetrating radar, or GPR for short, is a geophysical method that uses radar pulses to image the subsurface. It is a non-intrusive method of surveying the subsurface to investigate underground utilities such as concrete, asphalt, metals, pipes, cables or masonry. This non-destructive method uses electromagnetic radiation in the microwave band, meaning the UHF or VHF frequencies of the radio spectrum, and detects the reflected signals from subsurface structures. Ground-penetrating radar can have applications in a variety of media, including rock, soil, ice, fresh water, pavements and structures, and in the right conditions, practitioners can use GPR to detect subsurface objects and changes in material properties, including voids and cracks. On the 4th of September that same year of 2015, both Piotr Koper and Andreas Richer decided to go public for the first time and break their previous anonymity, along with announcing the precise location of this elusive gold train that they had originally given to the Polish authorities. Both men had released images that they had taken with a KS-700 ground-penetrating radar system that appeared to show a 50-metre deep man-made shaft with something in it, with both Koper and Richer believing that the gold train was buried next to a 4-kilometre or 2.5-mile stretch of track on a Polish state railway line at kilometre 65. So, as well as deploying police and other guards to prevent access to the numerous treasure hunters who had arrived armed with detection equipment, the Polish authorities then sectioned off woodlands in the area known as Kilometre 65. And in the late September in 2015, the Polish military, acting at the request of the regional governor, began to clear the surface of trees and search for booby traps and mines. And a month later, in October, the Polish military declared the area safe. In the mid-November of that same year, 2 different teams were cleared by the Polish city authorities in Wałbrzych to make a non-invasive assessment of the site. The first team consisted of our 2 heroes, Piotr Koper and Andreas Richer, and the second team consisted of mining specialists from the Krakow Mining Academy, which was headed by a gentleman named Janusz Madej. And a month later, when the survey was complete on the 15th of December, Janusz Madej's team announced that the survey had found no evidence of any gold train, although they did find possible evidence of what they thought may have been a collapsed tunnel. However, undeterred by this news, both Koper and Richer still stood by their claim of a gold train, to which Janusz Madej responded with, and I quote, "It's human to make a mistake, but it's foolish to stand by it." Five months later, in the May of 2016, and despite the leader of the Krakow Mining Academy team, Janusz Madej's expert opinion that no gold train existed, both Piotr Koper and Andreas Richer still managed to secure the permission that was required from the Polish State Railways, who own the property, to begin digging at the site, with the excavation itself commencing on the 15th of August in 2016. The excavation team consisted of 64 people, which included engineers, geologists, chemists, archaeologists, and a specialist in military demolitions, and reportedly cost €116,000 or $131,000, and was financed both by private sponsors along with the help of volunteers. However, the dig was halted after 7 days, when there was no sign of any tracks, tunnel, or most importantly, no gold train. And as it later turned out, the ground-penetrating radar images that were thought to have been on the train were revealed to be nothing more than natural ice formations. On another interesting side note, an ice formation is any mass of ice that occurs on the Earth's continents or surface waters, with such masses forming wherever substantial amounts of liquid water freeze and remain in a solid state for some period. Familiar examples of ice formations include glaciers, icebergs, sea ice, seasonally frozen ground, and ground ice associated with permafrost, which is a perennially frozen soil found in frigid regions. Approximately 3/4 of the Earth's fresh water is stored in these enormous ice sheets that cover Antarctica and Greenland, as well as in these smaller ice caps, mountains, glaciers and piedmonts that are scattered throughout the rest of the world. These expanses of perennial ice originate on land by the compaction and recrystallization of snow and other forms of precipitation under the weight of successive layers that have accumulated year after year, occurring in every region, including the equator at high altitudes. Towards the end of 2016, the excavation was officially declared a failure, and the leader of the Krakow Mining Academy team, Janusz Madej, dismissed the claims outright, stating that, and I quote, "There may be a tunnel, but there is no train." However, it wasn't all bad news for our intrepid railway enthusiasts, Koper and Richer, as an official from the city of Wałbrzych admitted that due to the gold train phenomena, tourism in the area was up by 44% for the year of 2016, saying that, and I quote, "The publicity the town has gotten from the global media is worth roughly around $200 million. Our annual budget for promotion is $380,000, so think about that. Whether the explorers find anything or not, the gold train has already arrived." And due to this good fortune for the area, the mayor was considering naming a roundabout after the two men, Coper and Richer. After this second short break in part 3, we will look at the continuing search for the elusive gold train, its legacy, and what was eventually found by one of the original identified men, Piotr Coper.
Fright Nights was established in 1999 as the first company in the world to offer overnight ghost hunt experiences to the general public, pioneering paranormal events since the last century. Fright Nights operate at hundreds of the UK's most haunted and exclusive venues. All events have their own team of experienced paranormal investigators, mediums and psychics. They have a VIP members club for regular returning guests, offering loyalty discounts and exclusive invitation-only events. They can also host private events for your family and friends. You can contact them on 07852 998 628 or email them at office@frightnights.co.uk. Or take a look at their website at www.frightnights.co.uk, where you can see the many locations they investigate and learn about them and the opportunities they have available. Hundreds of ghost hunters join Fright Nights every month for the most thrilling ghost hunting experiences they'll never forget. If you haven't been on a ghost hunt before, then why not join them to see what it's all about? Why not visit their social media sites for up-to-date information on all the places they visit and to see what's coming up in the future? They look forward to seeing you all soon. Fright Nights Ghost Hunting Events. Remember, only the original will do.
At the beginning of the December in 2016, both of our heroes, Piotr Coper and Andreas Richer, declared their intention to create a foundation for the purpose of raising money to allow them to drill down a further 20 metres of the site in 2017. And during this third search in the June of that year, with the assistance of a geophysical company from Warsaw, the excavation team encountered 7 cavities which they suspected to be a railway tunnel, with it being reported that this find would make more deep drilling necessary. However, like most things, it came with a price tag which, according to the contractors, would cost at least 100,000 zlotys, which is about 23,000 euros, for just the permits along with the actual excavation. So, taking all this into consideration, the next dig was scheduled for the spring or summer of 2018, when more sponsors would be found. However, when Copper and Richer attempted this deeper excavation, still nothing was found. No train, no treasure, nothing, nada, zilch, zero, not a bean. So, in the August of 2018, Andreas Richer finally abandoned the search, gave up and left the excavation team. His partner, however, Piotr Coper, continued to hold out hope that the train, or at least some part of the reported hidden treasures from it, remained in the Polish landscape somewhere undiscovered. And although Coper never found neither the gold train nor the treasure during his continuing search for it, in the January of 2019, Coper did hit pay dirt when he discovered a large and priceless 16th century wall paintings that were hidden behind a plaster wall whilst he was doing some renovation work in an old palace in the village of Struga near Wrocław. Of course, Piotr Koper and Andreas Richter aren't the only ones who loathed the idea to give up the hunt for both the Nazi gold train and its treasure, as NPR's Scott Newman reported that the Deputy Culture Minister, Piotr Zakowski, announced that he was, and I quote, 99% sure that the gold train, along with its gold, had already been found, which then, of course, prompted the local officials to seal off all parts of the mountains to keep amateur treasure hunters from causing any damage to either themselves or the surrounding area. On a quick interesting side note here, NPR, which is an abbreviation for the National Public Radio, is an American public broadcasting organisation headquartered in Washington, D.C., with its NPR West headquarters in Culver City in California, and serves as a national syndicator to a network of more than 1,000 public radio stations in the United States. So now, after this claim made by the Deputy Culture Minister, Piotr Zakowski, the local officials must decide if it is worth it to go ahead with their plan to excavate the area again and send cameras into the supposed tunnels to see what's down there, or let the fabled Nazi train sink back into stories, folklore and urban legend once again. So, bringing us up to date in the July of 2025, an anonymous group calling itself the Gold Train 2025, which is unrelated to the aforementioned group of Zone 65, claimed that there is a gold train which is located at an undisclosed location in the Svidincia Forest District that surrounds Wałbrzych. And according to reports, it is buried with or behind, and to be honest I'm not sure which, 3 boxed cars that are said to be stuck in an old train tunnel. The group did manage to secure limited permission to search the surface with metal detectors, and they were also allowed to dig up to around 50 centimetres or 20 inches deep with hand shovels, but as of the time of writing this show, I can't seem to find out anything about their progress. But watch this space, you never know. So, although it does appear that the Nazi gold train is nothing more than a myth, I can't help wondering about all the unanswered questions that have been put forward. For one thing, why did multiple witnesses claim in the first place to have seen the Nazi gold train entering the tunnels back in 1945, only for them to never emerge again? The trains, I mean, not the witnesses. And why, at the beginning of this treasure hunt, were the Polish authorities so confident that our 2 heroes, meaning Andreas Richter and Piotr Koper, of course, that their discovery was even real? And of course, let us not forget about Project Raise, meaning the aforementioned underground tunnels that were constructed by Nazi Germany between 1943 and 1945. In that, why were they so poorly documented, despite them being one of their largest wartime construction projects? You know, nearly everything about this Nazi gold train story tells me that it exists. I mean, hear me out. It does make sense, to me anyway, that the Nazis during World War II would have taken any treasure from any place that they would have conquered, and once they'd stuck their flag in their newfound land, they would have no doubt transported all these stolen treasures together somehow. So why not by rail? I mean, let's face it, it was faster and more convenient than transporting it by either road or air. But I'm not a historian, and this is just my opinion, of course, so please don't all shout at me at once. It's just that I can't help thinking that if the German army had got any whiff of them being defeated, wouldn't they have to hide their giant locomotive swag bag somewhere? And if so, why not a large disused tunnel? And if they didn't hide it in a tunnel, where did they hide it all? But whether the Nazi gold train is indeed buried deep beneath the Polish countryside, or if it's simply an urban legend that's got out of hand, it still remains as one of the most puzzling mysteries of World War II.
for taking the time out to listen to this episode of Mark's Unexplained World. In our next episode, show number 163, we are going to be looking at the disappearance of Trevelyan Evans. The disappearance of Trevelyan Evans is a missing persons case from 1990 concerning a 52-year-old woman who vanished without trace from her antique shop in Llangollen, Denbighshire, Wales, in United Kingdom. The last confirmed sighting of Evans was near her home on the 16th of June in 1990 at 2:30 p.m. She has never been seen or heard from since.
This show was written and researched by myself, Mark Hughes, and proofreaded and edited by Linda Hughes. The pronunciations of all the names and places, although I don't think I did too bad this time round, was all mine. The actors in this episode were Mark Hughes, Linda Hughes and Denise Poolar, with special thanks of course to Neil Packer and the staff at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley, and of course a big thank you to everyone for listening. We never run out of ideas here at the office for Mark's Unexplained World podcast, but if you do know of any other intriguing stories under the Unexplained banner, including ufology, hauntings, disasters and any other sort of paranormal phenomena, as well as true crime, unsolved crime and missing people, just drop me a direct message and I'll see what I can do. I'll also include the name of the person who suggested the idea in the end credits of the podcast, if they're happy for me to do so, of course. And again, just to add, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any of the other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. I thank you in advance. Mark's Unexplained World, because there's more to the paranormal than meets the third eye. And remember guys, keep it real, because being real is better than being perfect. No AI was used or harmed in the making of this or any other episode of Mark's Unexplained World. This show and all its contents are covered by basic copyright of Mark the Medium.